For those people who are joining now, I think I'll just repeat that this is being recorded and the video is going to be available shortly. So I think this is a good time to start. If we can see, welcome everybody to this webinar. If we can look at the next slide, I'll give you a quick overview of the agenda, what you can expect today. Now, in the people attending this event, we have a really good mix of experts and people who are new to space. So we're going to try to convey a message in a way that is substantive, but also concrete enough. Now, we're going to start with this short welcome from myself, Jose Salgado, and then Marcus Hauser, the CEO of the Space Cooperative Europe, will bring you a quick introduction. And we're going to dive into why space for Agrifood with Cynthia Buteau and Jonathan Volk. After that, we're going to have Martin from SBIC giving us a few details about the Accelerator. And finally, we're going to move with a panel from companies who are already doing some kind of activity in low Earth orbit and have direct relationship to the agri-food sector. We'll have Ice Cubes, Kaiser Italia, Airbus Bartolomeo, Yuri Microgravity, and at the end, Q&A. So one more time, I remind you to kindly type all the questions you have about both activity in low Earth orbit, the Accelerator, and the community platform that you'll learn about on the chat box. So without further ado, let me introduce you Marcus Hauser, CEO of Space Cooperative Europe. Marcus.
Thank you very much, Jose, for the introduction. I would like to welcome you here to this webinar in the name of the whole consortium. So Space Cooperative Europe SCE is priming the consortium for the ESA BSGN Industry Accelerator for Agrifood, together with the consortium members EURA and SBIC. SBIC will be represented today also here in the webinar by Martin Leinweber, who will guide you through the process. And just would like to mention that we are very happy that we are allowed to introduce you today to the space space research for Agrifood. Because we were mandated by ESA in order to help them to stimulate the market. What does it mean? It means that ESA was looking for a possibility in the BSGN program to stimulate research in a way that is commercialized in the long run, which means ESA will support at the beginning, and then time over time, it has to be financed by third-party financing only. So this is a great opportunity for everybody who is interested in space research. Space research is possible for all ESA member states in the exploration envelope. And the aim of this, let's say, call, which we have announced, is to find ideas which can be developed for a flight project and finally also being financed once they are selected. And here, I think for us, it's a great opportunity. We were from the beginning looking for the topic Agrifood because it's a main important topic. Why do you need research for materials? Why do you need, drugs for lifestyles to improve your lifestyles if you don't have anything to eat anymore? I think it's a main important topic. So we know that in 30 years, the UN was forecasting a war for water and food, and climate change is making pressure on this topic. So we need quick solutions. We know that there will be harvest yield cuts, and we know that the climate change will also change the whole agriculture. For example, potatoes, which are being grown and planted in the middle of Europe, will be moved to the Nordic countries due to the climate change because it's too hot. So space could act as a catalyst for solutions on Earth, and Cynthia Buteau will introduce you to some of them in her presentation. Cynthia is the head of space commercialization of Space Cooperative Europe, and she's very experienced. I think she knows more than all of us because she was doing this job already for 20 years, also with NASA. And we are very happy that we have such an experienced lady in our team. And last but not least, let me just go through the process. As always, it's very important. We would like to ask you to hand in an idea. You can find the template on our website. I think somebody could put the link again into the chat. Just fill it in. It's very easy, and also submit the LOI until October 26. And then it's very important to know that you should also register to the community platform, the Agrifood community platform. Why? Because it may happen that you have many questions, and it's not possible for us to answer the questions to everybody. And we are also have to be fair, which means, you know, there will be a Q&A session, which will be guided by Cindy, and you will raise the questions and we will answer the questions there so that everybody can understand and sees also the answer. And if there are some detailed questions, I guess they will be solved. And there are many people also who are interested in an answer. Just to see, there are two phases of the program, and we are now in the phase 1. The phase 1, and this is step 1, is the open call for ideas. There we would like to just submit your idea. Then step 2 would be that there will be an open call for projects. It's some more detailed, also with regard to some economics and details to the project, with a second template.
All right, and thank you, Marcus. I am going to be the timekeeper, and we're going to move to the next slide. I think we can come back to this slide, Marcus, as we continue on. But I think this graphic that Marcus is discussing right now is really the reason we're here, which is to focus on the step 1 and step 2 process of the of this phase 1. And as Marcus said, what we're trying to do is focus on what does this mean for you. All of the work we're doing with the agriculture and food Accelerator is really based on ESA's focus on commercialization. As we know, the Director General Oshbacher has issued top 5 priorities, of which commercialization is probably his most important. And part of this is ESA's Business and Space Growth Network, which includes 3 accelerators: biomanufacturing, the one we're talking about today, which is sustainable agriculture and food, and then advanced materials and manufacturing. The focus of what we're talking about is really going off our planet to solve major terrestrial problems. As Marcus just said, the problems we're facing with our agriculture and food. For those of you that are not necessarily familiar with space on this call today, you probably have heard about the supply side. You've heard about SpaceX and Elon Musk. You've heard about Jeff Bezos and Blue Origin. But what you haven't heard of is probably all of the extensive commercial and scientific activity which is taking place in space. You'll see here a number of big organizations globally that have done life science and crop science, or consumer products, or technology, or sustainability type projects. And this is what we call that demand side of space. What's really exciting about right now, it's not just the International Space Station anymore. We're seeing record levels of investment into new space stations, to new facilities, new space factories, which are going to allow that whole volume of space-based activity, things you're going to do up there, to bring back here that are going to improve your agriculture and food processes here on the ground. And so what we're saying is the time is now. It really is an unbelievable opportunity with what ESA is doing with Business and Space Growth Networks, industry accelerators, and the whole sort of new space factories that are allowing space-based continuum to really match your terrestrial product development cycle. And again, that's what we're here to talk about today. We're not talking about going to space to do research with astronauts or, to build food for future cohorts in the future. We're talking about using this incredible environment to improve your research, development, and manufacturing processes in the agriculture and food spaces here on Earth. And so why are we talking about that? What is the value of you doing something related to agriculture and food up there related to the work that you're doing here terrestrially? There are really big outcomes and value associated with both the agriculture and the food side. So the work that we're talking about on the agriculture side are geared towards increasing crop yields, creating more stress-tolerant plants, finding improvements in vertical agriculture, decreasing water, decreasing chemical use, and really to help prevent catastrophic crop losses. All of the things that we're extremely concerned with in this sector here on the Earth. On the food side, the things that you're going to do up in space will help create longer lasting foods, more shelf stable foods. I know some of you are interested in preservatives and stabilizers. From a packaging standpoint, we're looking at removing biofilms and creating more green packaging. So the work we're doing up there has real value to your processes here on the ground. We have 3 primary areas. The first one are seeds and plant nutrition. And again, a lot of what we're going to try to explain with you today is if you're focused on seeds and plant nutrition here on the ground, why would you do something in space? And it's really 4 major topic areas. It's plant genetics, it's gravitropism, it's soil health, and it's disease treatment and pest management. And so what we do is we explain what is it about the terrestrial propositions that you are caring about in your day-to-day work here on the ground. What does space do to that in terms of improvement and creating a superior result? So this is the work we'll do with you as you're developing your proposals so that you're putting in an optimal proposal as part of this whole process. And as you'll see, the markets that we're talking about are the markets that you're operating in terrestrially. The second major area is crop monitoring and management. And here, we're using the vantage point of Earth. We're using Earth observation and remote sensing technologies where we're looking at GPS on farming equipment. We're looking at soil health, crop health, weather monitoring, and pest tracking. Again, the areas that you're most concerned with. And then the third area is food behavior, formulation, and packaging. And so ultimately, when you're optimizing your shelf life of a food product, or you are creating a stabilizer that is more tolerant or less of a pollutant, there are many reasons why you would benefit from microgravity as you're going through these processes. And then from a packaging perspective, we've got lots of great examples of the way that biofilms really deteriorate the work that's done here on the ground and how microgravity can help eliminate those biofilms as well as create better green packaging. So this presentation will be available to you afterwards, and I would think that you might want to go back over some of these phenomena related to the areas that you're most interested in, and if you have any questions, we're happy to talk through that with you. And one of the main reasons that we wanted to sort of discuss this with you is what is it about low Earth orbit? What is it about those scientific benefits up there that improve those 3 areas that we're talking about down here? So do we have Dr. Jonathan Volk with us right now?
Here, can you guys hear me?
And can we see you, Jonathan? I can't see much, but do you have your video on?
We have you.
All right, Jonathan Volk has extensive experience, working at the ISS National Lab and now managing the manufacturing activity at Sierra Space. And Jonathan will take us through what is it about low Earth orbit and the phenomena that really improve those outcomes that we just talked about. So over to you, Jonathan.
Great, thanks, Cindy. So there's three main ones we're going to talk to. I'll just kind of highlight them here, and then as we get into a little more of the subsequent slides, I'll get into a little bit more. The main one is microgravity, as Cindy mentioned. So gravitational forces get suppressed, so other forces help dominate a system, and I'll talk about why that's the case in the coming slides. Next slide. So the extreme conditions, we can test materials in space with all the variables that are there all present at once. So it's a great way to accelerate how fast a material, biologic material or an inorganic material degrades. Again, it can be accomplished much faster up in low Earth orbit than on the ground. And then next slide. The vantage point. We talked about how it's a great opportunity to utilize LEO to gather big data sets, especially as it relates to crop health, weather, energy emissions, pollution, et cetera. So that's another strong value proposition there as well. Okay, so on the microgravity side, there's everything I'm going to talk about here coming up forward all kind of comes back to this. So again, by suppressing gravity, you're really suppressing convection, buoyancy, and sedimentation. And any process, really any biological process, physical process, et cetera, is made up of a combination of forces. Some are driven by gravity and some aren't. So by removing the gravitational ones, we really see how do those non-gravitational forces impact a system. And we really can't do that on the ground because gravity is always there. So by going to low Earth orbit, by going to microgravity, we can really isolate those forces that are present, but we just can't really study them very well on the ground. So that's really kind of the main concept across all these examples I'm going to show. So crystallization, again, without gravity, crystals can grow more uniformly. They can grow larger. That's a big benefit as we look at growing things related to the food and agriculture industry, things like fertilizers and water-soluble products. Cell biology, the fact that you don't have those gravitational forces, it's much easier for cells to form 3D structures biologically. You don't need scaffolds or matrices, and that obviously has a lot of applications to the life sciences and also agriculture, biotechnology, synthetic biology, et cetera. Microorganisms, because again, diffusion is not a gravitational force. In microgravity, it's very driven by diffusion. So you can really observe in a different way how microorganisms behave. Again, things that are present in food-based products or things you may want to avoid in food-based products. Plant science, so looking at how plants grow, how does that root structure behave? How does water flow into those root structures when you just have surface forces? You don't have those density gradients or that sedimentation, et cetera. So it's an intriguing way to really look at how plants evolve and grow over time in that environment. Similar to the crystallization, any type of material from a molecular structure, you can form a more uniform molecular structure, fewer defects, and really the molecular structure is kind of the DNA of any type of material, organic or inorganic. So by having a stronger DNA, fewer defects, you can make stronger end user products across a lot of different industries, as you can see listed there. Property measurements, so looking at systems, how do things behave when something melts or it freezes again? How does that happen? What non-gravitational forces drive that process? That's can be very critical and be a benefit of doing this type of research in microgravity. And then looking at fluid dynamics. So again, very important in food and agriculture, looking at mixing and colloidal chemistry, things like that. How does these fluidic systems behave when you have surface tension dominating a system or diffusion as opposed to convection and sedimentation? Reaction chemistry, again, like on the food side, how do things mix? How do things separate? How do you form doing a reaction to produce an organic material used in food or agriculture? So that's can be an interesting area of study in LEO as well. And then I think the last two areas going to this, now we're stepping away from microgravity. I talked about the external materials testing, again, a great way to see how a material fails much faster than you could on the ground. And then the last example, looking at remote sensing. So again, generating those big data sets across the entire globe or a continent or a hemisphere, and being able to get that information to really show, okay, what are some where's the pollution the highest? What sectors, what parts of the world are appropriate to grow a certain type of crop, et cetera. So it's a great way to utilize to generate big data sets.
Great, and thanks, Jonathan. So stay on, Jonathan, because you and I can both talk about some of these use cases. But what we just tried to do is not spend too much time on the science itself, but give you the underlying forces of microgravity, the extreme conditions, and the vantage point that support our three primary areas: seeds and nutrition, crop monitoring and management, and food behavior and food packaging, all of which benefit by those three phenomena that we talked about. And so now what we wanted to show you are, what are those use cases? You know, who has done this type of work already? And this will sort of lead into some of the topics that our panel will also discuss with the work that they've done. This first example is my favorite. It's Target, the company Target. We were talking to them about sustainable or chlorine on bathing suits because they are the #1 seller of bathing suits on the planet. And it was during one of those discussions that they mentioned it takes 700 gallons of water to produce one cotton t-shirt. And from there, we worked with their corporate social responsibility team. We received $1 million, and we ran an open innovation competition, a grant competition, focused on solving more sustainable cotton production. There were 3 winning projects. There were probably 100 proposals, and there were 3 winners. One was from the University of Wisconsin, and they targeted the roots of cotton sustainability. The second was from Clemson, and they looked at genomic and precision genetics. And the third one was a vantage point type of project where the company produced an app where the farmer could look very easily at the boundary conditions of their field of which they were planting. So again, very tangible examples in the areas that we're talking about as part of this accelerator that you can use as examples of what's already been done. There was a large, and I'll let Jonathan know we're not going to say the name of the company, but there was a large food and beverage company, Jonathan, focused on barley seed.
Yep, and this company did a series of experiments going back to that plant growth example to really see how do seeds germinate in microgravity. Can they do in a different way? What drives that germination without the presence of gravitational forces? So we can learn more about that process to apply that to their ground-based growing.
Syngenta, this company was focused on, and we've actually worked with several companies like Syngenta that are looking at seeds and plant nutrition. And here they were looking at better understanding the stress mechanisms of plants and looking at better vertical agriculture techniques. Again, a topic I think many of you on this webinar are interested in. Jonathan, Nalco Champion?
Yep. So in the Nalco Champion, which is now actually Champion X, they're focused on the oil and gas industry. So biofilms are a big problem in that industry. They obviously corrode pipelines, causing, as you can see there, at least $1 trillion in damages every year. So they really want to see how do biofilms grow. And they do that much more effectively, bigger, stronger. So it's much easier for them to get the data they need to understand biofilm growth in a much faster time frame, so they can apply what they learn to prevent that from happening on their ground-based pipelines.
And even though this biofilm example was on oil and pipelines, we have many examples of biofilms being of interest in ag and food, especially Jonathan in food, and the packaging areas. Another one on droplet formation, Jonathan?
A Delta faucet. So these folks wanted to see how do droplets form out of a patented technology shower head to really make droplets get bigger. They wanted to see, again, what non-gravitational forces drive that process. So by having bigger droplets, that allows people to utilize less water when they take a shower. So good for water conservation. And also, if you're taking a hot shower, it's good from an energy conservation standpoint as well.
And again, this one is related to, people taking showers, but droplet formation and this whole area is extremely relevant, water management related to agriculture and food. So that's why we added that as the example. This example, again, it's a Jonathan project, was related to a colloidal stability, which, as mentioned earlier, we've heard that many of you are interested in preservatives and stabilizers. So Jonathan, what did Procter & Gamble do?
Yeah, they actually did a series of experiments that still continue to this day to really see in addition to sedimentation, which is kind of the driver of why a product degrades, why you can't keep it, it has a shelf life. They want to see what, again, non-gravitational forces influence shelf life. And really the only way to do that is to do it in a microgravity environment. So they've done a lot of research, actually have gotten multiple patents from the work they've done to really learn about, hey, how can we make common over-the-counter shelf or cleansers, detergents, but again, it also applies to food. How do we make those products last longer for our customers?
Exactly. And then I think this is our last example, the Agricultural Camera, University of North Dakota.
Yeah,
yeah, go ahead, John.
So these folks really looking, again, getting those big data sets, and this may be a little more regional, looking at certain areas of North America, but again, it can help them get that long-term information, that big data sets to help them account for fertilization, pesticide application, growing patterns, et cetera.
Great. So I think that's it, John. Thank you very much, Jonathan. As you guys can see, Jonathan really knows his stuff and is pretty much responsible for many of these projects coming up to space. And we're really excited to be talking with all of you today about hopefully doing the same thing as part of this process. So thank you, Jonathan. And now I would like to introduce Martijn Leinweber, and hopefully I said that well, Martijn, to talk about the
thank you, Cynthia.
Okay, for the open call for information process.
Yes, so welcome all. Great to see you all. So as also presented in the beginning by Marcus, we now have an open call for ideas, which is online and where you can submit your idea proposal. And there's some steps you need to take for that. So I will ask for the next slide. Yeah, so the main thing and the main important thing, and I think we also highlighted several times, is make sure to register yourself at the BSGN Agrifood community platform, because there are a lot of questions which you can raise over there, but there are all experts over there which can help and support you. You could network, maybe find your partner to submit your idea. So it's important to make sure that you register yourself over there. Then the process in that sense is very simple. We have an online application form. It consists of over 12 questions. The questions can be found and can be seen in advance, because there's also a PDF on the webpage. I think we're going to put up the link later on into the chat as well, or maybe it's already there. If you fill in these questions, a little bit about what your team, the fields you would like to apply, the goal, etc. You fill this in, you submit it, the form, including a letter of interest. When we receive it, we will confirm your application. And once that has been done, at a certain moment, we will let you know if you're being selected for step 2 or not. For now, it's very basic. It's 12 questions which you can address. If you need some support with questions, you can find that support on the platform. And then we go to the next slide, please. So what happens after you're being selected with your idea proposal? Once you got selected, we're going to provide you some support to make sure you get be able to form a concrete project proposal, and we provide you some business technical support, as well as provide you some insights in terms of the financial aspect. That is for later on to submit on the 16th of December. But the first things first is the ideas proposal that will be to be done before the 26th of October. Back to you, Cynthia.
Cindy, you're muted.
Thank you, Marcus. I was going to say, we will have time for question and answer at the end of this. So if anyone has questions on the proposal process or that timeline with those dates, we can definitely show those slides again afterwards. All right, so now, actually, I can't believe we're running on time, which is great. This is going to be my favorite part of today's session, which is really a panel of experts that have the facilities and the capability that are going to be your partners as you conduct your in-space activity. So we've got 4 organizations. We've got Airbus Bartolomeo, we have Space Application Services IceCubes, we have Kaiser Italia, Bioreactor Express, and we have Uri Gravity. And what I'd like to do is have everybody unmic yourself, or unmute yourself, I should say, and let's see your video. And this part of it is really just a discussion where we're going to probe on what is it that you have done, what does your capability look like vis-a-vis agriculture and food, and how is it that you can help a lot of these folks on this call that have no experience with space. So I'd like to start with ladies first. I'd like to start with Hilda from IceCubes. If you could just give an introduction of yourself and just a brief opening statement, and we'll go around with everybody and then we'll come back with question and answer.
Sure, and thank you for the organizers for having us and this panel here as part of the webinar. So my name is Hilde Stena. Thank you, Cindy, for the introduction. I represent our IceCube service. So IceCubes is a service that is provided by the company Space Application Services, and it's initiated through a partnership with the European Space Agency. IceCube stands for International Commercial Experiment Cubes, but you don't need to bring ice cubes. You don't even need to bring cubes, even that is not mandatory. We do have a facility on the internal pressurized side of the space station in the European module, and it allows for research and technologies that are related to both microgravity that Cindy and Jonathan very nicely explained, also to radiation. And these two, microgravity and radiation, can actually support many topics related to agri-food, again, as nicely explained by Cindy and Jonathan. So on our side, we have launched several setups to space that allow for agri-food related research, such as growing plants and seeds in space, such as researching cell culture, specifically cellular meat in space, also crystallization studies, genomic studies, for example, on yeast, but also setups that allow for fluid dynamics that Jonathan explained. That's also important, relating, for example, to shelf life of products. And we are currently preparing setups that allow for testing of food stability or biofilm related research. So in short, we provide an end-to-end service, a one-stop shop that provides the expertise and support that that are needed also for non-space entities who have never done anything in space, because we can imagine that it may sound sometimes intimidating at first, but that's why we think it's good to connect both to the Accelerator and to services like ours that can enable and provide you with the guidance and support.
Great, thank you, Hilda. And let's stick with women. And I'd like to introduce Danny from Uri. And we'll come back to you, Hilda. We have lots of questions for you.
Hi, I'm Daniela Bestan. I'm the Chief Scientific Officer of Uri. We have several stations. We're in Germany based, but we're also in US and in Luxembourg, and there will be soon other sites available. We are also an end-to-end services. We used to work with customers and collaborators doing any step. We have been until now a hardware company, so we're producing exciting opportunities, science shells and mid-deck lockers, which are fit to nearly every platform. So and if you work with us, you can actually work with any kind of vehicle now and in the future. And additional, we also, since we are getting more science bound these days, we actually increased our experts, and we're designing science shells and which important features. For example, microscopes which fits within the science shells with real-time monitoring. So in the best case, you're sitting at home on your sofa, and you can look at your cells and decide yourself when your cells are ready for fixation. We are designing several new sensors, and we're also putting these sensors into our new science taxi, which able to simulate which will simulate gravity on the space station or in any other vehicle, and moon gravity and Mars gravity, so you get gradients there. So we actually thinking very, very much science orientated, and we will have our first maiden flight of science taxi in Q1 2024, so already in a year, more or less. Very excited. But on the other hand, we also, as I said, switching to a biotech company. We have exciting research ongoing. We already have a couple of planned projects. We're in the middle, or we just in the past. We put it in the chat. We're looking forward for new exciting challenges, and what's not existing, we can build it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. And now let's switch over. Why don't we go to David, and then Christian will end with Bartolomeo as the fourth. But David, do you want to give an overview?
Yes, thank you. So this is David Zalesi from Kaiser Italia. We are a 36-year-old company, and essentially we are based in Italy and in the UK. And we design and manufacture over the past 30 years more than 80 different types of experiment hardware, and we take part more than 100 of different experiments into microgravity condition, either orbital capsules or onboard the International Space Station. So essentially, so starting from biology, but coming to seeds and plants, for example, we design some hardware to perform multi-trapezoidal studies and also studies on complex vegetable organisms like complex plants. And moreover, we are also in touch with some scientific teams in order to study the biofilming effect, both on rocks or on plastic and metals. So essentially, we are much more the industrial partner rather than the scientific partner. We had a partnership together with ESA, and we have access to the cubic on board the International Space Station, and we can provide turnkey services and give the chance to everyone who can want to have their experiments on board to have their hardware not necessarily done and designed on purpose. If they need some bespoke hardware, we can design and manufacture, or we can try to see whether in our catalog there are any kind of hardware that can be reused, and so therefore we can loan this hardware to the customer in order to shrink down the time from the contract to the flight. For example, we've flown an experiment together with the University of Edinburgh in 1 year time, which is a very good result. Moreover, we are also working on with a company named Accelerator Agriculture to fine-tune the synthetic growth of meat in space in order to better have better results also on her. I think that's just is good for introduction.
Okay, great. Thank you, David. And Christian, the best for last. So what we just heard is sort of the internal microgravity focus, even though I know that each of these organizations just spoke also have some potential satellite operations and other types of support. But Bartolomeo Airbus is sort of in a different category. And Christian, why don't you give an introduction of you and the platform?
Yes, indeed. Thank you so much, Cindy. So, yes, as you said, Bartolomeo is a bit different from the 3 other offers that were presented. Bartolomeo is an external payload platform for which I have the pleasure of being the program manager. Christian Steiml is my name. Work here at Airbus Defense and Space in Bremen, but we have also an office in Houston, Texas. And we work very closely in operating this external platform of ours with ESA and also with US National Lab and NASA in order to make happen missions from primarily Europe and the United States. Being an external platform means the exposure to the harsh space environment directly, but it also means a unique viewing position from the International Space Station to Earth. And this is a very good, a very cost-efficient and easy to use platform for all kinds of experiments and payloads outside, among them also remote sensing applications, and you would not directly link that to the topic, but also for applications which would allow precision farming. If you know exactly where you are, you can improve through GNSS applications for which we also are a test platform. So there is really no limit of what can be done as long as it's safe for ISS operations, and we do all kinds of complex missions. But here, maybe the applications is really to fly remote sensing instruments of any kind, to assess more in depth the status of crop fields on the ground, of forests on the ground, or whatever is there to be observed. This is really, we are preparing missions, doing that on Bartolomeo, and we see great interest in doing that, and we can do that. And that's the difference to the other, well, the satellite world, etc. We can do this for any payload size, any instrument size you may imagine in the context. So we would be really happy to help you bring your experiment or your instrument on board, although you may not have any experience. But we are, as all the other concepts, we are an end-to-end service that helps you from scratch to the flight of the payload, through operations and even provision of the data back to your own repository, so that we can really be your guide to this rather complex system ISS and even to the external environment of the space station.
Great, thank you, Christian. And so can I ask each of the 4 of you, could you give a very concrete example of a project that you've done with an end user in the agriculture and food space? And I don't care who goes first. I know, Hilda, I think you've got a ready example at your arm. So, you know, what I'd like to really get across to this webinar audience is, what's the real life activity that's already happening right now with your facilities, or in the case, Christian, of you just talked about some of that focus capability, what really is possible or has already happened from an instrumentation standpoint. So Hilda, do you want to jump in?
Sure. So maybe I can say short a couple of examples. So one thing that we regularly fly is a crystallization incubator, so that allows for proteins or large molecule crystallization under microgravity. And so last December, for example, we flew a large food and crop science company and their proteins, just to give an example. One of the first modules we flew was a greenhouse that did actually synthetic biology, so looking at how plants can be used as biofactories, so to biomanufacture specific proteins in space, for example. And last December, as part of the very first fully commercial mission to the space station by Axiom, we supported also a cellular meat study by a company, Ale Farms, looking into the effects of microgravity on the processes that are responsible for muscle tissue formation in the context of, in this case, steaks, so cow cells for steaks. So just a couple of examples where we do support a setup, whether that's in the sense of crystallization incubator, of a greenhouse for plants, or a microfluidic device that allows for cellular meat studies. These are a couple of concrete examples that we have supported in the past and can support in the future.
Great. And Danny, do you have any concrete examples?
Actually, yes, we do. So we have our VFP throw experiment mission, which have been quite a while about rice, but currently we're working and very exciting about this on a project called Glücksklee. We're actually studying the interaction of plants with bacteria. And the beautiful thing is it's a mixture of also an educational project, because some of our members are even pupils. So that is what we really want to try to do is as a company, because we can to actually give everyone access to space using modular system and make it very as easy that a pupil in a school can use it. So that is something which is very important. We also having a couple of other experiments ongoing, which I just checked last night. I can't talk about, unfortunately, but it's unfortunate. I checked, and but it's exciting. The good thing is with our systems, we have a modular system, so we have a very fast space access. So our record is 6 months. So and we are a company with 20 engineers, around our fingertips, so we can actually act very fast and adjust. And most of the modelers are flight proven and can be exchanged. You really can skip long lines in all the regulation tests. So whenever somebody's looking for something more specific or complicated or really in a time pressure, and currently our flight budgets, I would really like to share a price list right now, around 95,000 per experiments. That's really just because we are that flexible. So yes, so we're looking forward to more approaches, and we're excited about this program because it actually fits not only what we can do and what we want to do, but also giving access to space to really everyone.
Great. And David and Christian, do you guys have some concrete examples? And I just want to remind everybody, please put questions in the chat. I think there's a couple that we'll start raising, but please start putting your questions in the chats, because we will now, right after we hear from David and Christian, we'll probably open it up to some of these questions. Excuse me.
David, do you want to go first? Shall I? Well, we do have some examples. I can take it over here. From here, we have the ESA exobiology platform in preparation. When this platform will become available after its first mission, also for other users. It is exposing organic material cell cultures to space radiation, space environment, with a predefined, let's say, a predefined dose of UV light. And those samples are retrieved after the mission for inspection. The facility, actually, David, you can say more about it because Kaiser Italia is building it, but it provides very tight, very narrow temperature conditioning. So it's really a high-end platform that will become available also for other users than the ones that are planned for the first mission. That's one part, and we have from TU, Technical University of Munich, and Ball Aerospace, a large satellite company in the US. We have instruments, a variety of remote sensing instruments in preparation that are going to be demonstrated on the Bartolomeo platform. So those are very prominent examples for what I said earlier, and those missions are in preparation to be flown in 23-24 timeframe.
Great. And David, do you want to finish off this round of questions?
Yes, just to give you two examples. So one, thank you, Christian, for mentioning the exobiology facility outside of the ISS. But yes, inside, we also done a lot, and we are doing some other very interesting experiment. The two that I mentioned before, I would mention again. So biofilm and biorocks are both on biofilm formation, but on different materials. Again, they are very different types of hardware. One much more related to how the bacteria could mining copper or other material from rocks and have a biofilm also as a result. And the other one is biofilm, in which we are really looking at the biofilm formation.
Great, great. I'm going to pause it here, and I'm hoping you guys just stay on video, the panel, because some of these questions you might be able to answer better than us. It's amazing how quickly time goes by, and I just really appreciate the depth of expertise that the panel really showed today. And just for everybody that's on the webinar, these are your interfaces to space, and you really couldn't have a better group of folks as have just talked. And so, Jose, do we have some questions?
Yeah, sorry for that. We do have a question. It's interesting. It's about the accelerator. So they're asking, what about the IP? If they submit a project proposal or an idea, is there a risk of IP leakage? And I think this is something that Martin probably can answer.
Well, it's when you submit your idea, of course, it's safe on our database, and it will not be shared with others.
Great. Yeah, I mean, yes, that's a great question. And
Cynthia, I think Marcus wants to add something to that.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, with regard to the IP, I mean, first of all, it's very difficult to create IP. I mean, from a legal point of view, everybody knows, and you have to get something really new. But as the process will happen, there will be no leakage of IP. You will have access to your own IP. And there will be, of course, a procedure for the financing, because it will be based on grants. But, you know, it's all in line with the normal legal procedure. So don't worry about your IP.
Good, thank you. Jose, any more questions?
Yes. So they're also asking, because we have people here from countries that are not part of the ESA member state. So in this case, we're talking about Finland, which eventually will become a member state. But what about other countries that are represented here who want to apply for the accelerator? What can be the message for them?
Marcus?
Yeah, it's an easy answer. Just form a consortium with a member of the envelope package, and then you can apply.
Okay, great.
All right. So
go ahead, Jose.
Yeah, we have a few more. I'll just go quickly so we make use of the time. Somebody is asking that on our website, by the way, on their website that we've been posting a few times on the meeting chat, there's a frequently asked questions section at the bottom. And some of these questions are already answered there. So if you also want to go check, that would be support. But this question is about, in terms of roadmap, on our site says, what is meant by the phase of program go or no go in February 2023.
Martin, do you want to talk about that, the call process?
Yeah, it's depending on step 2 is also kind of depending on the ministerial. So after February, when the project proposal, it's kind of depending what the outcome from ESA is. And there's there's whole discussions about what's going to be next. Yeah. Marcus, do you want to add some information to that?
Well, thank you, Martin. Yes, of course, we push the process. Your ideas won't get lost. We will develop them anyway. And the process, as discussed, there is phase 1 and there is a phase 2. In phase 1, we just want to select a project portfolio. In phase 2, we develop it. So we will help you also to develop a flight project, which is important also for the space service providers who are here in the panel, because they don't want to start from the scratch. They need to have something developed in hand to take over. And of course, then this has to be financed. So we are working on a program fund. First part will be grant financing, and it will be also a future an investment fund. And what I mentioned is the Accelerator process will help you to form a flight project and to get financing.
Thank you.
And I think this picture here, this phase 1 and phase 2 sort of outlines what we mean by that process that Marcus so nicely described. All right, Jose?
Yes, so basically, and also, by the way, our colleague Emmanuel has been also answering some of the questions on the chat. So they've been answered by the panel, and here, and also by the chat. One question that is more on the scientific side of it, of the project, is asking, are there any platforms that can be used to incubate samples in simulated microgravity or partial G levels similar to the Moon or Mars?
That
Yes,
question might be better. Yeah, go ahead, sir, to the panel.
Yes, actually there are. So we bought an exclusive license for the random position machine from Airbus. We actually currently also working on, yeah, we will make some changes. But what's interesting here is that we can simulate with this any kind of microgravity, even a gradient. It's also that 80% of all publications have been done on that machine. So it's very comparable, and we're constantly working and improving it. The other way to do simulated microgravity is on a kleiner start, which we are also offering. It depends what kind of experiments have we help you to decide this. So these are very nice on Earth simulations, but also since I've been one of the authors of the NASA twin study, and I saw the data, how the impact of the landing really can screw up your experiments. So with this in mind, we also developed the new vehicle Science Taxi, which go to the ISS space station, but has within the mid-deck locker and centrifuge, which can simulate Earth gravity, Mars gravity, and Moon gravity. And with this, you can finally really make a real comparison about your effect in microgravity conditions versus your control. And that is for me personally a highlight, since I've been dealing with a lot of data which have been heavily influenced by other impacts. Thank you.
Great. Any other panel member want to comment on that?
Yes, Cynthia, may I?
Sure.
Yes, of course. Not in terms of simulated gravity on ground, but in terms of simulated Martian and Moon gravity, or even simulated Earth gravity into the space. Yes, the facility which is on board the International Space Station, which is cubic, can be used with the experiment hardware we designed in order to simulate those kind of different level of gravity. And therefore you can have your experiment on ground, and then the test sample, the same test sample in orbit, in microgravity condition, and in simulated gravity, at the level of simulated gravity you may need.
Great. And just quickly, Christian or Hilda, anything to add?
No, I think it was explained by Daniela and David. So I think there's several facilities both on orbit and on the ground that allows you to get access to partial and simulated microgravity.
Great. Are any other questions, Jose?
I think this is a good time to end our webinar. We are over a couple of minutes after 5 p.m. So I think we reached our target. The questions that are appearing, our colleague Emmanuel has been answering them. So you can look at the chat, but I think we are good.
Okay, and Marcus, do you have a final statement to end this webinar?
Yeah, it's not only a statement, it's a request. Please hand in as many ideas as you can. Why? Because this pushes everybody, to go ahead, because the more we get in, the better it is, because then we have many projects to develop, and the space service providers, they're happy to perform the flight projects for you and with you. Join the new venture of space research and find new solutions for humankind. We are happy to support your project. Thanks for joining, and let's keep in touch via the Agrifood community platform. So that's very important. Please join the Agrifood community platform, because we will continue to communicate with us only via this platform, because this is the right place. Thank you very much for joining. Thanks also to the speakers, and also for the whole team.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.